You want me to make sure this is working?
Yeah.
It should be working, right? Yeah. Yeah. You want to try yours?
Hello.
Yeah. So hello everyone. Thank you very much for being here in this not really good evening, which is raining, it's windy, and the traffic is terrible. So thank you very much for making the effort of being here. Thanks for the introduction. So the idea of being here together was to discuss our approach to science from very different perspectives, because both Isabel and myself work in the same institution, in the University of Manchester, but both our backgrounds and our scientific fields are completely different. So we thought it was going to be interesting to see these different approaches. This is a very quiet space, a very intimate, so feel free to interrupt us, to share your experiences, to add any question, whatever it is. We will have time for questions later, but don't wait for that. If you have anything to add, any comment, please feel free to do it, okay? So, as we are going to talk and moderate ourselves, do we want to start talking about our experience prior to coming to the UK, or prior to science in a way? Do you want to make a start?
Well, I'm very excited to be here and to share a little bit of my experience, before and after in the UK. Well, I'm originally from Ecuador, as was mentioned before, and I recall my interest in science since I was a kid. I knew which university I wanted to study. I didn't know which field, but I knew the university because I had some role models, not in my family, like my dad or my mom. They both were, my mom was a nurse and my dad a school teacher. So I didn't have that role model in my family, but I have some cousins that were studying engineering and I didn't know what it was, but I kind of liked it. I studied chemical engineering, and I had my first job in an industrial site. And when I started, I had three characteristics: young, recent graduate, female chemical engineer. I wasn't sure if that was an asset or liability, and I found it quite challenging, especially at the beginning, more from the side of being a recent graduate, to get positioned in a company, to make our voices heard. And I had a boss. He was my mentor, and he left the company. He changed to another unit in the same company, and nobody replaced his role. And at that point I thought, who will help me push my ideas? But actually that was an opportunity for me to push myself and my voice. Then I switched to, that was an international cement company, and then I moved to the public sector, working with gold extraction for artisanal miners, working with people from the south of the country that were facing some difficulties with especially health issues, environmental issues with the way they do mining in the south of Ecuador, and that was very fulfilling. And then I had my first experience in the UK. I came to study my master's in 2014. I finished in 2015, and I went back to my home country, and I worked in academia in two different universities in engineering-related disciplines. And after that, I knew I wanted to do a PhD to pursue a career in academia, and that brought me back to the UK in 2019. So that's me before the UK, let's say.
Thank you. So my experience is slightly different because I really never wanted to do a PhD in the first place. So when I finished, when I decided which career I wanted to do, I chose advertising and PR because I really like it. It was very cool, and it was very creative. And I always had this creative side that I wanted to explore this further. So I did the BA, which was 5 years in Spain back then, and I started to work straight away in industry. I worked for 12 years, and it was quite what I was expecting. It was quite dynamic it was different. I worked with big clients, shooting many campaigns, traveling a lot. But at some point, I mean, it was too much in terms of, I think it's a type of career that you do when you love what you do, but when you love it so much, there's no like a balance between your personal and professional life. There are no boundaries, so everything becomes the same, and you work non-stop, weekends, you are traveling all the time. And at some point, I realized I wanted to do something different. I think I had in a bit of burnout, and then I thought about doing a PhD. I had started a PhD 2 years before, but of course I had no time for anything, and a PhD requires discipline and time, and have some sort of routines and a clear structure of things, which if you work in advertising, you don't have nothing like that. In fact, you can never meet with one person alone, because it's very likely that you cannot go because something very urgent will come out and you will have to cancel things. So one night I was working in the agency, and I think it was 2 a.m., 3 a.m., because there was some very, very urgent thing to do, a very campaign we need to deliver that night. And it's like, this is over. I wanted to live abroad. And I started to look at, different funding to go and do my PhD, and I saw one, and I literally did my application in 2 hours, and I completely forgot about it. And a few months later, they called me for an interview. I was like, what? Because if I will do that now, it would take me probably 2 weeks or a full week to prepare that application. At that moment, I didn't even pay much attention because I was not expecting to get it. So they called me for an interview, and I didn't prepare the interview either, because it's like I thought there was no point, and for some reason they gave me the funding. And I applied for going to Oxford, because as I was not expecting to get it, it's like, oh, let's aim high. And that changed my life, because moving to Oxford, at the point I moved, I had just signed my mortgage alone with my first house, and I have a really good job, a really good salary, and I quit absolutely everything. My job, my salary, my stable life, and I became a student and came to the UK, to Oxford, because I thought it was really worthy. But with the idea of finishing my PhD and coming back to Spain, which never happened. And what it made me really become passionate about research and about becoming a scientist, for me, was really related with Oxford and with all the research community that there are there. They are like amazing professors and academics and really well-known people, and you become really inspired to do many different things and to do different research projects, and this is why I decided to stay. So this is how it started. So now that we are in the UK, we have moved from the past. Probably Isabel was really more focused on what she wanted to do, right, and more closely aligned to what you expected from your career. For me, it was a bit of improvisation, but trying to discover new things and get inspired by new things. But what happens when you move to the UK, when you did your PhD here in the UK?
When I first came in 2019, I had a definite date, let's say, to come back to my home country, and it was 3 years after, because my PhD was 3 years long. That was not the case. But initially, I got the funding from my government, the government of Ecuador, to do my PhD, and that was part of my contract to come back home and work there. Things changed, and they changed the regulations a little bit, and they allowed people to work abroad and contribute in some other ways to the country, for example, with seminars, with workshops, because there was an issue there. People getting prepared abroad couldn't find jobs in Ecuador. And I thought that would be a very good opportunity for me to gain experience that I may not be able to gain in my home country. I came with my husband. We both came to study the PhD, and it is hard to be especially far away from your family. 3 things happened throughout my PhD journey that were really strong. The first was the pandemic, whilst my mom was very sick in Ecuador. this, with all the lockdowns and not being able to travel and following what is going on, will it change, it will open or not, so that was very, very hard. And when restrictions were lifted a little bit, I finally went to my home country, and I realized how families always are so supportive. And I felt relieved to see my relatives supporting my mom and dad in that situation that was very hard. And unfortunately, my mom passed away a few months after. So that was the second very, very strong moment in my life. And towards the end of my PhD, I had a baby. And being pregnant changed many of the plans we already had with my husband. And thankfully, I found a job in the UK, and that let us stay here while my baby was born, and to allow him to grow, and we are still here with a very uncertain future, I must say, because the position I currently hold is temporary, and this is known that research positions are a bit unstable or short term. But at the moment, yeah, that's our situation here. I love the job that I do, and that's something I would like to relate with Marta was saying, that you get inspired by the people that you meet and how they work and the things that they are doing. And you see that you can make impact through your research that is not just in the walls or within the university, but this can actually be applied and make as a little or as a big impact as it can do. And this brings me to this moment now, still in the UK, still facing a bit of uncertainty about the future, but living the day, I'll say. Yeah.
Thanks. So my case is slightly different. So as I told you, I did my PhD in Oxford, and my idea was always to come back to Spain. And I was determined with that, but I got involved in many opportunities. I love to get involved in many things. I have a problem in saying no, which is a big problem. So I developed like a side project along with my PhD that it was about gestural interactivity. So my research is focused on artificial intelligence, immersive technologies, and everything that relates with how it is applied in different ways. So I look at sustainability as well, but digital sustainability. So it's like a field where there has been many advancements in the last few years, and I'm quite passionate about everything. So we developed like a project on gestural interactivity, which was quite new at that point. It was like 10 years ago. And it was about filling garments on screens so that you could navigate on a web page and you could feel a garment, feel a texture, and have more information before making a purchase. So we applied for funding, and we got the funding, and it was like £1 million, something really big. So it was me and my colleague, and she was based in Edinburgh, I was based in Oxford, but she was the PA, principal investigator, because I was a PhD student at the time. And she moved to Manchester, and that's why I ended up here, which is slightly different to Oxford, I must say, and the environment is different, but still, I think it's really good. I think the support we have here as researchers and the support we have when we start new projects is something that I feel, because I'm not sure, it will be different in Spain, because I have never worked in academia in Spain. All my professional life in Spain has been in industry. All my scientific life has been in the UK. So I have this as a reference, and I feel it's going to be different. So in my case now, I'm on my research sabbatical now for a year, which is something which will be very difficult to get any other place. So basically, I can do whatever I want for a year. I still get paid exactly the same, but I can pursue new research, new projects. I can go anywhere. I can meet new people. I can network with people, and it's like a year they have given me just to advance on my research in the way I want to. And this type of opportunities, I feel they are quite unique here. I think that the support we have the flexibility we have, and we can talk about kids later, even if I have my daughter with me today. So sometimes it's difficult to jungle, but I think it's quite unique and quite different. In my case, I have a permanent position, and I have had it since I came to Manchester, likely since 2014. And I still want to come back to Spain, but for different reasons, just for family, friends, because the grandpas get old, and we feel like the kids are growing up so fast, and they are missing that. But it's difficult. It's difficult because you realize you are going to miss this part. And we were talking the other day, right, Isabel? I wish I could take this job back to Spain. That would be amazing, but unfortunately we can't. But yes, I feel the support we have here is quite good, and the opportunities and the support you see around in the society, how scientists are valued here, how there are like different funding you can apply for many different things. And if you really want to pursue something and you are convinced about an idea, you are going to find the support to do it. You are going to find colleagues or funders or sponsors, whatever it is, and you know you are going to get the support for that, which probably I won't be able to find it back in Spain. Maybe yes, I know some people who is doing really, really well, but it's a little bit more challenging in a way. I don't know how it's in Ecuador. How do you feel it will be back in Ecuador?
Yeah, I had experience in academia in Ecuador in 2 public universities. I held temporary positions as well. In my case, those were more focused on teaching. And there was no time for research. It was very busy, many hours a week of classes, many students, especially on the first years. And I've seen how this is different with the UK, where, as you said, have many opportunities to do things, to explore. And I found that is really important in science, to have this time to wander and look around, meet people, get inspired with ideas. Just attending training in something completely different to what you do, you can find something that sparks an idea and opens a new field. And that's my experience from what I've seen in Ecuador, in the positions I had, and that's something that sometimes also keeps me thinking. I'm planning to go back to my country, but it will be a hard decision. I don't want to think about that now, just now. But I've seen the flexibility, the opportunities, the training, the networks that are created in this country are quite strong, and it can push projects.
Yeah, and one thing that is really good is because in the case of Isabel, she's research associate, so her full time is on research. In my case, I'm senior lecturer, so it means I have teaching and research, both things, but I have 46 hours of teaching a year, which is nothing really. So normally people have 200, 300, 500. So again, if you are quite active in research, if you publish a lot, if you get funding, so basically you buy more time for research. And all the research I do is my own research. So I don't do research for others. It's like I do whatever I want to do. But of course, because it works and it gets publication and funding and everything. But there's no anything that you say, okay, I have like 300 hours teaching and I cannot do anything with that. You can. And if you demonstrate that you are a good researcher and your research is good, they will reduce your teaching. And I think this is something really good in Manchester, that for many colleagues, even in the UK, they don't have that. And in Manchester, really support like researchers if they see and they feel your research is going to make advancement and they're going to contribute to society. Because yes, you see something very interesting before, because you see how your research can make things change, and you can see this change. I work with the Parliament, I work with the Manchester Council, with many things, with interest group. I have even developed a project on, because my research is about technology, and we have developed a project about how technology can be used, like the dark side of technology for domestic abuse, which is something completely different outside my research. but we have been able to make this contribution and working together, and this is really satisfying in a way, and this offers a lot of value, and you say, okay, you see like your research is making a difference and is making, I don't know, a small step towards something better, which is good.
Yeah, I was inspired last week. I attended a workshop in Leeds, and we had a few people attending and presenting, and there was one academic originally from Colombia, and he has lived here for 20 years already, and he was pointing out some of the research he has done and the places where it has been applied. It's not near the UK. In Africa, in Indonesia, and many countries where they need this, and I was really inspired. You don't really need to be in a place to make impact. Being here in the UK, you can make that impact somewhere else, and I believe, I feel that it could be easier, or there will be more funding and help if you were in that country. For example, I see myself, I would like to do something in Ecuador. It may be difficult there to get the funding and to make impact there, but I can collaborate and do projects that can really impact in my home country, and something I'm really looking forward to give back to society, especially my home country, because yeah, I'm really fond of Ecuador.
So we are going to talk a little bit about equality in academia, because it's one of the things we wanted to look at. How do you feel is academia? You think is promotes equality, inclusivity, especially looking at women in academia and the role of women now and girls, and how they are going to access it in the future?
I mentioned a little bit about my early days in the industry when I started my first job and in an industrial site. In total, there were 300 people working in the industrial site, and in the plant, we were 4 women only. When I started, I asked, where's the toilet for ladies? Where can I get changed my clothes? And they noticed that there was something missing, and they started accommodating a place for us to get changed and giving us a key for the toilet, because it's just for women, so no others can use it. And they just realized about that. Then, being here in the UK, I feel, especially when the time came for me to become a mom, that the university has been very supportive with the time, and especially the flexibility. As I can mention, just today, I was very excited to come to this event, and I planned to go to my place to get relaxed a little bit before coming, but I got a call from the nursery. My baby had a fever, so I had to go, and he didn't want to stay. So I picked him up earlier, and we went home. So those are things that happen, and the type of job allow to take this work-life balance much easily. But there is a point I've been exploring lately, and it comes from actually the place where we initially met. We met in a course about internationalization of higher education. And I've been thinking about internationalization and the intersection with higher education, academics, and caring responsibilities. And even looking at the literature, I realized that this aspect, that internationalization is something not that explored, and sometimes, I must say, overseen, because international people, I don't know exactly, it cannot be classified or categorized easily, but people coming from other places face different challenges, and that's something that is still not seen.
Yeah, we were discussing that. I think we are privileged in a way because the university is different in many things, and I think, and I'm not an expert on this, but I think in terms of maternity leave and paternity leave in this country is a bit more tricky. Is quite good, and it's true that there's a lot of flexibility when you become a mom if you want, to have time off or whatever it is. We even have like a year of maternity leave, which is not really a year because it's not paid, so it's more like a leave. But you can have it if you want. So I think they make things quite easy when you come back. But of course, I think being a woman, what happens when you have kids, that is completely normal. And this is nature and biology, is that there is a break, so you are going to be away. And if you have a career where you are active publisher and you are involved with many projects, of course, there's going to be like a break in there. And that's completely normal. And even if there is this equality in terms of salary, everything is very transparent, so you know who is the salary of everyone because you know in which grade they are, and everything is published, it's in the website, it's online. But once you, and I talk about becoming a mom because it's something very common in women, you want to be promoted, then you are compared to the highest achiever, who normally doesn't have caring responsibilities. So it's like they support you, they give you all the flexibility you need, and this is fantastic. But of course, you are gonna have you're gonna be left behind in a way. So I think this is not that much related to being a woman or a man. It's about setting up priorities. So you say from now on, I'm not going to work on weekends, I'm not going to work on evenings because I want to be with my kids. Of course, something is going to happen in there when your career was built on working. And this is not really a gender difference, it's a way of setting up priorities. So when both my kids were born in Spain because we decided to do that, so we were there for the maternity leave, and when we came back, we decided that we didn't want them to go to nursery straight away. So my partner in this case, he took a leave and he was taking care of them, so I could come back and come back to my project because it's what I really wanted to do. But I didn't want it to come back to the same level I had before, because for me, I had different priorities now, and I think this, in a way, is not that much recognized. So it's like, it's always going to be, so when I asked for my sabbatical, they told me, oh, but this is something you could get in your normal work. It's like, no, I could not get this in my normal work unless I work 7 days a week, like my colleague who has got this because she works 7 days a week and she really loves it, and she does have a family, and that's fantastic. So I think there's a huge emphasis now on equality, diversity, and inclusivity in university, but it's true that some realities as international staff, people with caring responsibilities, because of course it's not the same to be here without family support, because if something happens, it's you and your partner, and this is why I have my daughter here with me, because something happened and we could not manage all the way because we don't have more family. So yes, for me, I think I have never seen this different, I have never perceived this difference for being a woman. My context is slightly different because fashion marketing is more female oriented in a way. But I don't see this difference at university. I feel if you have a career and you are committed to it and you have good results, they are going to support you, and there's not this difference that it could be seen in other sectors, or I don't know if in other departments, to be honest. So they are going to support you, and they are going to support you in specific circumstances like maternity, who are more exclusive to us in a way. But at the same time, if you don't keep up with everything, you are going to lose track in a way, which is something very normal as well, and it's fine as far as you have your priorities clear, right? I think so. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one element of you in this discussion, because I'm actually living it right now, which is menopause. Sometimes we don't account as women till we don't reach that age. That performances are not anymore like you were 20 years younger.
Yeah.
Like there is no account. Yeah, we talk a lot. I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
So I'm associate director. I have a PhD. I work at university in Italy. So I lived a little bit of your experience.
Yeah.
So for me now is how I define. I have to admit that I'm not anymore that person.
Yeah.
because it's biological. It's not something that I chosen.
Yeah.
You know? So equality means what the definition of equality? It's very difficult to, because it's laid down by, my opinion, by a male perspective,
Yeah.
not a female perspective. Equality for me would be, oh, I recognize I can vote 80% because that's I. So
Yeah.
you know. So what do you think about this
Yeah,
aspect?
I think there's like this emphasis on these things, but there's not a clear application of them. So same as Isabel said about not the international stuff being recognized or the reality being recognized. I completely agree with you. This is designed by males, and still we have this, like they are trying to keep up with things, but they are still quite behind. So now in all job offers and everything, you will see this disclaimer that we prioritize women and people from ethnic minorities. And this is it. But as you say, there are like many other realities, and I completely agree with you. One of my colleagues told me exactly like that. It's like, I have been working for 30 years. I don't have the same energy as before. So for me, teaching to 400 students is more demanding now, and having all this is more demanding now. And this will be an adaptation because I'm perfectly fine to do many things, but it should be like a natural thing. Same as being a mother is biology, and you are not the same, and you don't have the same energy, and you get more tired, and you need to rest a little bit more. It's exactly the same, and this is not there yet. Even we have this discourse of
The definition of success for me is very difficult as a woman, because my success is not a definition of my company's success. So for me, it's neutral. It's helping the others. It's actually have that maternal behavior.
yes.
Which is not recognized as an asset. So, you're trying to, but then you have barriers because in reality they look at other indicators.
Yeah, and for success also there is an important aspect that when you have knowledge work and we talk about productivity, how do you measure that? So it depends on many factors, and you cannot actually compare. There is not a single metric you can use to compare that, and that makes it more tricky. And what you mentioned before, I believe that's very important to raise awareness about these issues, and this kind of places is where these ideas spark, and then we can do something.
Yeah, it's disappointing to know I can't see a single man. That's disappointing because reality, you need to have an ally that can actually, bridge the gap.
Yeah.
That's really what is for me sometimes missing. Either I have very good conversation with some colleagues because they have experiences of weakness of mental health. So in a certain way, they are more similar in their experience to a woman experience. So we can have, a point, but then so it's just a challenge all the time. I mean, it's 30 years of working on the field. I was a single man, a single woman in high school 30 years ago. It's absolutely improved. I can see that, but it's at a certain level. That's the problem. And then scientific field, I don't think that there's any barrier, honestly, because you do scientific stuff. But it's really on the challenge you have along your life as a woman. There is no account yet in full how the system operates. So
It's not understood properly. So it's there, and they try to do it, but still the leadership style is still very male-oriented, and the success definition is very male-oriented, or the traditional, not even male, but the traditional definition of success. And you see that in the promotion criteria and in many different things. So there are thankfully, there are lots of committees and groups and things discussing this and trying to promote more equality. But a real equality, try to addressing things that's, to be honest, nobody talked about this before. Nobody recognized many things before. And now, I know it's difficult because the University of Manchester is huge, and I think it's the biggest company in Manchester with more employees, right? And they try to incorporate the differences of staff and different religions and things, and try to make something that makes sense. And even they have tried to adapt calendars and things to that. So it's funny because, I mean, I'm from Spain, and in Spain, the 6th of January is Reyes Magos, which is an important holiday for us. So I have managed to move something that always happened on the 4th of January because of this, because it's like, this is a religion, this is a Catholic thing. And I have managed to do that. And it's like, thank God, after, because they always happen on the 4th, 3 or 4th of January. It was like a promotions committee, which is something very important. Told them, I'm not going to be here, I need to be with my kids in the cabalgata in Spain. And this is something really important for us culturally, because when you come from a different culture, you try to keep these things as well. And I know it's difficult to bring all these differences together and make a space for everyone and for women. But I think we are better now, but of course there's a space, there is a space for improvement. But I see a huge difference between the UK and Spain, for example, in terms of this. So I think there's a clear intention here of doing things differently. The cases I know in Spain, which is not all of them, they are probably not discussing these topics that much, or they are not over the table.
To be honest, I'm in Tottenham. I moved here 8 years ago. 8 years ago. I was working international, worldwide. I worked at university. I never felt any difference because I was a woman. I felt more here when it took all the time.
Because when you talk about something,
So
you raise awareness.
There were some episodes, funny episodes. You are the secretary. No, actually, I'm the engineer. But you always talked in a funny way. But here there's a lot of talking about actions, actually bring you in a better place. I have the feeling it's less.
There is still a gap.
Yeah.
Of course, and probably in Isabel's field it will be bigger than mine, because my colleagues from engineering, they complain more, like the women, about how many challenges they have faced, about like senior professors who were like dinosaurs and they didn't want to have women around and things like, and some of them are still there. And I have never went through that, and probably there will be more things there. And there's something else we wanted to discuss, and I wanted to ask you as well, what do you think about the role of girls in science? Because I feel there's too much emphasis now on that girls need to do STEM careers and they need to be in science. And we have always discussed or complained in a way that there's a lot of pressure on women in many different ways, in terms of being the best of everything. But now I have the feeling that we are putting the same pressure on the girls, that now they need to become, whatever they do, but they need to choose a career in science. And I don't know, what do you feel about it? How do you see it? I mean, you have a boy, but I feel the pressure with.
I've seen a lot of resources and events for promoting STEM careers. Actually, I'm a STEM ambassador. I found that interesting. It could reach many people and at least give them an idea of what it is like to be a chemical engineer. As I mentioned before, in my case, my dad, a school teacher, my mom, a nurse, they didn't have a clue what chemical engineering was. Me neither. I started my undergraduate degree and I realized what chemical engineering is about when I was in my second year. I didn't know that before, and I recall telling my dad, this is chemical engineering and I like it. And he was like, thank God. Because many people decided to change in second year. So when there is no this role model or someone to talk to and explain things, I think these programs are good. But there should be also some other options to see what it's like to be a teacher, a doctor, a nurse, an artist, and all these things that give ideas and all the options that are available.
Yeah, I think we even have specific targets now about how many women females need to have in the programs to make sure they are more balanced, because some of the engineering ones are more male focused, and now it's like a way to force this balance between them. And yeah, I think there's quite a lot of pressure in a way. Lot of programs just for girls and not boys, like going to talk to a school and just talk to the girls. It's like, why? Let's talk to everyone, and it's. So I think we are putting a little bit of pressure on small girls. So hopefully, and also on parents, because it looks like now they need to study this and they need to become this. And same as before, you needed to be a lawyer or whatever it is that was more formal and had more job prospects. Now it looks like it's science careers and STEM careers, and everyone needs to do the same, but especially girls to overcome this gap. So hopefully, let's let them do whatever they want to do. Right?
And support them.
Yeah, and support them in this. So, yes. So we left open the space to questions and comments, so you can share a little bit with us. Thank you for sharing your experience and for making. Yeah, you can say whatever you want. So does anyone want to share their experience or to ask any question? Yes?
I just want to see if I can hear a bit about what your go-through research is at the moment, just like a little summary of what you both have.
Currently, I'm working on developing a technology for hydrogen production. Hydrogen can be used in several ways. One of them is as a fuel, and it can help reach targets for decarbonization, like fight climate change. So it's very exciting. The word that's going to say, I love what I do, is developing a new technology, something that doesn't exist. And whenever I read a review paper or technologies that are out there available, there's nothing about what we are doing, and it's very exciting to see the prospects of what it can do. So I'm working on developing this technology. It's called chemical looping reforming. It sounds like a mouthful, but yeah, there is a thing there. So yeah, that's my research area.
So my research is focused on technology. So I look at immersive technologies in spaces like the metaverse, and I looked at how consumers and brands interact in there, because the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. So I look at digital sustainability and ways to try to reduce the impact of it. And one of the key technologies I'm looking at the moment is artificial intelligence and generative AI for consumers, and ways in which brands can use artificial intelligence to produce in a more sustainable way and in a more reasonable way. More questions? Comments? You want to say something, Matilda? No? You want to say anything else? Yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want us to cover. We were thinking about this thing of equality in academia, how our career as being women in science in the UK has been. And I think we have covered almost everything, right?
Yeah. It's very, very nice to have this space and commemorate this day to remember, girls and women in science, and to raise awareness of some other topics that are really important, and to keep, I can say that this is key, raise awareness. Make sure this is on our radar, and next time we think about something or decide something, we keep that in mind, and that can help us consider the broader spectrum that the people that we have around. Yeah.
Can I just add one last thing?
Absolutely.
My experience is awareness is not only toward us, it's also toward the others. So when you find allies, when you find men, and when you explain why something is not quite right, they tend to respond well because sometimes they don't even know that they are actually making. I'll give you an example. There was an open seat for, anyway, a conference. So I sent an email and I say, so they are trying to find some women to represent, that group in that conference. And this guy said, I thought to send the other guy. I didn't even know that. So in his mind, there was not even the idea that he could send a woman. Not because he was, a bad guy. It was just not in his mind. I said, I'm going to consider that. So 2 years later, this guy sent me an email. Look, there is seat free for this position. Now, I'm going to make you apply for it. So sometimes we think there is no bad intent. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes just to make them aware. Sometimes I think we fail in recognize. Sometimes we are too modest. In my opinion. Sometimes we think, we are scared to raise our hands and propose ourselves. And that's something that is in our nature, probably. Or I'm talking about myself.
Yeah, because traditionally it has been like that, and it's still something that we need to fight for. But also there are I have found many cultural differences as well in the way to treat women in science or in academia. I used to teach in China very often, like twice a year. And there it was absolutely hierarchical, like women, even women lecturers, they were in a different level. So it was like the males were like up there and they were down there. Like, what is this? And I have seen that with some of my PhD students or some students coming to the UK, which treats women and men differently because it's what they do in their culture, in their countries. I have a Chinese student. She came from a very traditional family, and she basically were two supervisors, and she was like even bowing to my colleague, to the men. It's like, why is he doing this? And it's like she paid huge respect to him because he was a male and he was a professor. It's like, and it was different. So we had an interesting conversation about this. But yes, they're like, I think the UK is obviously we are in a different position. But if you look at here, there are like people from all over the world, and there are like many cultural differences. And sometimes it's really difficult to juggle and to deal with them.
Yeah, if I can add there, sometimes, as you mentioned, it's not because of doing something bad, let's say, they just don't realize. And sometimes these decisions doesn't allow us to make the decision. Because somebody else thinks, for example, she may not be able to go because she has a baby. But you can ask me, and I can make arrangements and try to attend. So we are, we lose this choice, this option, and so it could be well intended, but so it's again keeping this in mind and not grabbing these options or these opportunities and just allow the person to choose at the end.
Yeah. I think that's a very, very interesting point, and I think this applies for male as well, because they assume they need to do certain things and they have to do certain things because their role in the family is different, which I feel is completely unfair to them as well. But it's true that sometimes they assume because you have kids or you have small kids, you cannot do certain things, or that's a really good point. I have no idea what time is it. I'm really relaxed here. Okay. Okay, if you don't have more questions, we don't want to keep you here for longer because it has been an hour. So thank you so much again for coming and for listening to us. And anyway, if you have any questions, you can ask us now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.